We're here with Dr Alexander Landia, who is the chairman of the supervisory board for the Mobility House. Now, Alexander, you've just sat on a panel as part of the Natural Resources Forum ESG Week that focused in on the energy transition. Now, this is a vast topic, but were there any aspects that you were particularly excited by?
Well, thank you, Sarah, and very happy to be here. Well, first aspect, which probably I would pick up from our panel, is the role of governments. And in my view, the governments have a very important role to play at initial stage. First, when they help to and mandate to price the externality, which is the carbon price. Second, that they, help kickstart development in certain technologies through subsidies and so on. But third, and that's most important part in my view, by creating regulatory framework which will enable new business models to emerge. Well, that's a good example for the Mobility House because we are mobilizing on aggregated basis the batteries of electric vehicles to stabilize the grid and provide backup power and other services to the power sector. The regulatory framework for that is needed because currently in Europe there is double taxation and double levies on mobile storage, and there is a discrimination which will need to be eliminated, but is not yet eliminated. And after these things are done, then the market has to take over. The market forces, supply demand should determine what will happen.
So in other words, in order for us to be able to enable the energy transition, we need governments to almost kickstart it in order for then markets to take over once it's rolling. Would that be a correct interpretation?
Absolutely. And for electric vehicles, the market forces are developing very well. Yeah. We are at the very beginning of the S-curve, the famous S-curve. Yeah. We're going to ride there, wonderful.
We're going to ride it. So, for example, if we take Europe as an example, where we've got a huge amount of attention focusing in on everything from the Critical Raw Materials Act, the Green Deal, and numerous other items of policy that are coming through, do you feel that they are practical enough in order to be able to enable the energy transition? Or do you think that they are, to use a quote from somebody else very recently, they are very heroic, but perhaps not all that practical?
Well, it's an interesting question because, we are doing a massive transformation and we are doing everything at the same time. And therefore, some things are not done in the right way, but mostly I think we are developing in the right direction. And the task will be to turn the problems of today into solutions of tomorrow. Yeah. And that's exactly what I was referring to with batteries of electric vehicles, because currently the batteries are perceived as a problem, or electric vehicles are perceived as a problem by grid companies. Yeah. And there are denials to connect the chargers or, huge delays. But in future, the electric vehicle batteries will be a solution. Because they can provide 30% of daily flexibility needs of the energy system in 2030 and even more in later years. But we need to get there. And we need the right foundation to solve both mobility and energy system issues.
And I suspect for that, we therefore need, for example, governments to say, yes, electric vehicles form part of our strategy for our country or our region in order to be able to progress forwards, because that provides the stability for companies and businesses to then form around those strategies. Do you think that is happening now, or do you think we've still got a way to go?
No, that happened already. And the impact, we feel that very strongly because most of the automotive OEMs clearly committed to battery electric vehicles starting 2030 or later exclusively, some of them. And therefore that transition is happening. But what we need are the pieces of regulation which are still missing. And that needs to be adjusted and put together, and then the picture will be wonderful.
And so one final question to you around scale-up capital. You mentioned during the panel session that, say, in America, car companies such as Tesla, actually a lot of that seed funding perhaps actually came from governments in the first instance. Do you feel that within, say, Europe and in the UK, do we have that same view of scale-up capital, or are we a bit more risk-averse?
Well, seed funding for Tesla came from Elon Musk, not from the American state, but in fact the purchase of their first plant was funded through a loan from Department of Energy. So that was the scale-up stage at which it was very important that they get the external funding. And in Europe, the companies get at that stage of scale-up probably 3 to 4 times less money compared to the American peers, and we need to change that. And we need to change the structure of the funds which are providing capital to the European companies, and we need to bring a lot of industrial expertise in those funds, because, well, 50% of technologies which we will need for carbon transition are not yet commercially tested. So there is a risk to be taken. Governments could play a role, mainly through the multilateral institutions like European Investment Bank and European Investment Fund, and they have set up programs to support that. But we need to learn how to use these programs best way with incorporating industrial expertise and knowledge to distinguish between, well, wishes and nice things which are, well within good intentions, but investable propositions.
And do you feel that those investors perhaps who are in need of those individuals that have those skill sets, do you think we have enough people with those skill sets who can go and perhaps alleviate some of those fears that the investors might have with regards to the risks that will need to be taken in order to invest in the new technologies, etc.?
Yes, I think that there are people there, and one particular pool of talent which is currently a bit underutilized in my view are the ex-European CEOs and CXOs. These are fantastic people, leaders who in their last jobs probably had a lot of research about the technologies and which will play out, which not. And usually they are not offered a partner role, they are offered senior advisor role. But I think that having them as equity partners in funds would be beneficial. There are some examples, but not enough in my view.
Brilliant. So we end there, Alexander, with a fantastical practical notes. So get them more involved, go and raid that pool of fantastic CEOs, etc., who are out there. But thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.